You are listening to the Racer to Racer podcast presented by Race 92. Race 92 is a vintage-inspired racing apparel brand specializing in celebrating vintage race culture and adapting to motorsports today. Check out race92.com for all your racing merchandise needs. I'm your co-host, Aaron Mack, to other co-host. He has a big old smile on his face right now, but you've probably seen him coming out of a great clubs with a big old smile on his face, and you've seen him at a dirt track. He is the one and only Scott Bowie.
Hello, Aaron.
How are you?
I'm doing good, as you can tell. I actually did go get my hair cut.
I noticed.
So, hence the smile, right?
Yep. So before we get into anything else, I want to thank everyone for watching and listening. If you haven't already, hit like and subscribe on YouTube. Also, check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere where podcasts can be found. We appreciate all the support. Also, we'll give a quick shout out to racercollect.com. Patrick Patton, great guy. Definitely check them out if you look for any racing memorabilia. A lot of the stuff comes directly from the drivers, so it's legit and authentic. So definitely check out racercollect.com.
Yeah, absolutely. We've discussed this before, but it's like Aaron said, it is directly more than not. Most of the product is directly from the racers themselves.
So we have a great show today. This might be our first. I'm trying to remember. I don't know if we've had a show where we've had two guests.
Well,
our Indy 500 preview show, we kind of did. So we had a couple roundabout way. But Kevin Lee and Jackson Lee, obviously, if you've been around racing for a while, you know who Kevin Lee is. TV announcer, been in radio for a while. He's done Pacer games, Colts games, I believe, you name it. He's definitely been around that aspect of just sports in general and, doing TV and radio. So it was great talking to him. And his son, Jackson, is, coming through the ranks of Road to Indy. And he's currently in USF2000 with Cape Motorsports. So it was really cool to talk to both of them. You'll see the interview, great interview.
It is a great interview, and I think it is an interesting perspective to talk to the father and the son.
Sure.
As they are navigating this together, and they are very much a team. And as Aaron mentioned, Kevin, he's been in Indiana sports, since he was pretty young, and local people in local to Indianapolis, Indiana area have heard his voice for years. It becomes like a familiar voice that you hear on the radio. And then if you watch the IndyCar broadcast, that sort of thing, well, he's a familiar voice you hear during the races. And but it was really interesting to see them in that light, as they're trying to go racing, and man, they do such a great job in getting sponsors and doing sponsor retention programs, and if you look at their car, it's full of, they have it's a couple of bigger sponsors, but it's full of like local sponsors and that type of thing, and which is such a cool way to help build your brand in the community. And they work hard. I just see I believe he was at doing a signing over the weekend at Healthplex, I think. And he has some other things that I know he's been doing signings at. And so yeah, it was really, really nice to see that and really nice to talk to him.
Absolutely. So only big racing news, obviously we'll talk about it here in a second. IndyCar weekend coming up, but real quick, Daytona 500 this past weekend. Pretty good race, pretty good finish. Obviously, Austin Cindric gets his first win, and in his first, it's his first full time, but I think this was his first actual Cup race too, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So
definitely his first Daytona 500. He is a rookie, so
great way to start out your first race, winning the Daytona 500, for sure.
You set the bar pretty high at that point.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. But he's definitely with a great team, and he's definitely gonna, do some great things. And it's kind of ironic because he kind of started out in the Road to Indy series.
He did start in the Road to Indy series, and for whatever reason, he chose to go stock car racing, NASCAR, and it sure paid off in the long run for him because he's had wow. What do you say? How can you? It's just unbelievable, right? For somebody that young.
Yeah.
And And
First race.
right, the first race, it was Roger Penske's birthday. Roger just doing what he does, just collecting trophies. Wins. He's won the first two. He won the first new gen car race at the Clash, and then now he takes the first points paying race at Daytona. I mean, it's just what Roger does. He just wins trophies and takes those big checks and cashes them, and that's who he is.
Oh, absolutely. So, obviously, like we said, St. Pete is this weekend. You're actually going to be there.
I will be. We'll be down there with a friend of the show, Jagger Jones, watching. Hopefully, he'll have a great weekend. His teammate is Jackson Lee. And hopefully, he has a great weekend as well. Michael D'Orlando has been fast in testing, and they added a new driver, Nikki Hayes, and he looks to be very fast as well. So, Cape Motorsports should have a great lineup in St. Pete, and just looking forward to going down there and having fun and catching a race, and hopefully come away happy for one of the four I mentioned. That's for sure. But there's a lot of great drivers in that series, so anybody that wins would be great. But that's a big field too. I think there's 20 plus cars. I think what they'll probably have for that, and you'll have the IndyCar race on Sunday, obviously, and USF2000 runs 2 days. They'll have 2 races, so it'd be a busy weekend.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And the IndyCar race, a lot of people are anticipating that. I think last year, all the different winners, I think it's going to be another great season. And yeah, it'd
Yeah,
be
it
really
will be
interesting to see what happens.
it's going to be really interesting to see how this season starts off. Colton Herta obviously is the man right now. I mean, everybody's kind of picking him to really go out and dominate this year, and I think Pelot's thinking to himself, "Now wait a second, I'm pretty good too." And then Patricio Ward, another super fast young driver, plus uh, Devlin DeFrancesco,
Mhm.
Kyle Kirkwood. I mean, it's as far as a young driving crop, what a great crop of young drivers. And then you've got all the veterans that are still there. So, I mean, that is going to be a close field. And I see that somebody released a power ranking saying, how the people do. And they had listed Dixon like 5th or 6th in power rankings. I was like, whew, that's a little rough, but all right, let's see how it goes.
Right. Yeah. So we're definitely look forward to. I'll definitely be watching the USF2000 race because I think they put all that on YouTube.
So it is on YouTube. There's a channel.
Cool.
I forget exactly what it's called,
I think it's Road
but
to Indy or something. Yeah.
yeah, and but if you go to YouTube, you can find the USF 2000 races live.
Awesome.
So
Yeah, I'll definitely be watching that. Well, yeah, so we're gonna actually say who's gonna be our guest next week. So we were fortunate enough to catch back up with Paul Page, and this was actually recorded back in December, around Christmas time. So, it's been a while, but we had a bunch of interviews that we recorded in December that were still, kind of releasing. And we actually just recorded another great interview right before we did this intro that'll be coming out in a few weeks as well. And man, what a great interview that was.
yeah, it was. I shouldn't say unexpected. It was just somebody I didn't know that well.
Yeah.
I'd known of him obviously, and I didn't know him that
Very
well. It
notable
was
name,
great,
right? Yeah.
right, and it was a talk that was way better than I thought it was going to be because I didn't know what to expect.
Right. Exactly.
So yeah, it was yeah, I mean, what can I say? He was very, very, very generous and kind with his time, and very nice, and just glad that we got to speak with him. But Paul's such a fun interview, such a fun talk, and I was really glad to be able to catch up with him again. Hopefully, we'll catch up with him again around 500 time, and
Absolutely.
yeah. So I hope everybody enjoys this because we sure did.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. So I hope everyone enjoys Kevin and Jackson Lee interview. Like we said, please hit like and subscribe if you haven't already, and stay tuned for the coming weeks because we definitely have some other interviews we're working on getting, and have a lot of ones we've already recorded that will be coming out soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Please do, and please, if you have time, catch one or both of the USF2000 races this weekend. They put on good shows. So again, thanks everybody for listening.
Today, we were joined by radio and television announcer Kevin Lee, along with his son Jackson Lee, who's driving in the USF2000 Championship in 2022 with Cape Motorsports. Thank you guys so much for joining us. How are you guys doing?
Doing good.
Good. Thank you.
So,
thanks for coming in.
So obviously, Kevin, you've been involved in motorsports for quite some time. First off, talk a little bit about how did you first get interested in motorsports?
I live in Indianapolis, and in all honesty, my background is more baseball, basketball, football. I was an Indy 500 fan, but I'm not going to pretend like I was a big motorsports fan. But when I started my internship my senior year in college with a big radio station in Indianapolis, it began in May, and that was my assignment. First day was go to the track, go find Mario Andretti, try to get sound bites with him, and so forth. So that was my indoctrination to motorsports. And then after working at a small station for a couple of years, I went back to WIBC, working on Pacers and Colts broadcasts. But in May each year, that was the assignment, that you needed to help out with the coverage for the 500. And that was pretty much all of it. But eventually I started taking a liking to it, understood it a little bit more, and then kind of realized it was an opportunity to expand my opportunities. That everyone wants to be a baseball, basketball, football announcer. Not everyone can do motorsports. So the first year that it looked like the Pacers either wouldn't make the playoffs or would have a short run, and I knew I would be more available, I called the IMS radio network and said, hey, if you need me, I'm available to be a turn announcer. And they said, okay. So that's what I did. I started off as one of the turn announcers for radio. Did that for a couple of years and said, I'd like to do this full time. So that involved moving to the pits. And then that eventually led to television. So I kind of used Vince Welch as an example too. Vince and I worked at the same radio station. He was my boss, and I had seen what he had done. And he probably was a little more of a motorsports fan, but he was really more of a baseball, basketball, football guy. But he's working in Indy, starts doing more, and that became his niche as well.
You've had the great pleasure, because you mentioned working with Pacers, and you've had the great pleasure, and I realize it's about racing, but of working with two, I would say, amazing legends in this town. And one would be Donald Davison, and the other would be Slick Leonard. Mm-hmm. And I just Slick, I just thought was one of the coolest guys. Obviously, I didn't know him, but I thought about that before. Is like how you got to really kind of interact with both, and I just always found that amazing. But
I've been pretty fortunate. It goes beyond those guys. I would include the Jerry Bakers, the Bob Lamies of the world, Don Fisher. But yeah, sitting next to Slick for 20 years at Pacer games was pretty cool. And Donald, I got to know during my internship at WIBC, and he actually had recommended me to Bob Jenkins in 1996. So I was just barely out of school. And this is kind of a learning experience. I had a voicemail message from Bob if I wanted to interview for a job at the radio network for the 500. So we come in and he says, so how much do you know about racing? And I said, not that much, but I can learn. So I didn't get that job. So then I approached him again about 4 years later. So I should have lied like everyone else does and said, I'm an expert. I know everything about it. But that was pretty cool. And I'm sure that's because Donald had recommended me to Bob, because Bob didn't know me at the time. And Bob ended up being, he's in that list too. Bob was a very, very close friend.
Yeah. I again, this is a man I didn't know very well, but I was around him a little bit just through auto racing, and man, what a great guy. So Jackson, as you've seen your dad be around all these sports figures and been around the Pacers, the Colts, the IndyCar deal, what drew you into racing? I mean, because you could have had expertise from so many different people in so many different sports, and what kind of drew you into racing?
Well, I think a big part of it was I was too small to play football, and I wasn't quite good enough to play basketball. But a big part of my my passion for racing, you know, I've watched Dad on TV growing up, but also on my mom's side of the family, I've got cousins and uncles who race sprint cars growing up. So I've just been around racing my whole life, and for whatever reason, that's just what stuck. And I just had something special with racing. And yeah, I did have a lot of fun playing basketball and baseball growing up, but just for whatever reason, I really enjoyed racing, and I wanted to put my focus towards becoming a professional race car driver pretty much from when I started back when I was 7 or so. And it just grew from there.
I didn't push the racing. I pushed basketball and baseball because it's a lot cheaper. And he did that,
Right.
kind of rec stuff and up through. He played baseball a little bit in high school, but racing was always what he wanted to do.
Yeah, unfortunately, right?
Yep.
Of all the things, unfortunately, it was racing. Hey, who was your relatives in the sprint cars? Net, I'm familiar with the sprint car market.
My uncle Steve Immel and then my cousin Sam Immel were the two.
Okay,
The
sure.
two who ran sprint cars, and then I had my grandpa and run go karts, and they all did that growing up. But I think it was one of my cousin's sprint car races that I remember I went to, and that's where I really, got the idea that, hey, maybe this is something that I'd want to try.
Yeah,
Did you
no,
start?
I have a big background in sprint cars and that, so that's awesome. Go ahead, Aaron.
Oh, you're good. So did you start racing go-karts then, or did you do any like quarter midgets?
Yeah, I started in quarter midgets. And it was just from when I found out my cousin started when he was 7 back in quarter midgets. I was like, wait, so I can do this too? And that was how that got started.
So, and then Kevin got to push it around the track every time it stopped, and he got to be a flagman at Mini Indy. He got to do all the jobs out there.
I don't know if I was ever a flagman. I was a corner observer, things like that. Yeah, you do that. But yeah, that was interesting, trying not to get run over.
Oh man, yeah, I've seen that before. That's a treat, man. These little kids out there running around, and the parents or whoever's out there trying to push start the car that stopped.
Yeah, we
So
made him wait till he was almost 8. I know some of them do it when they're 4 and 5. I just didn't see the sense in that. It seemed a little
no,
bit too early to me.
no, I absolutely agree. I mean, it's like anything else. Some kids can do it at 5, but by 8, you can get a real sense of
Yeah.
they can kind of learn a little bit better than that. So with you being a local, on local radio and that, so I've kind of listened to your career since the beginning, as your dad would talk about, yeah, we did this weekend, we kind of did that, and you could, from where it started as a hobby and just going having fun, and you could tell it was getting a little more serious and a little more serious as you went. And so where'd you first start running go-karts at?
Out at Newcastle. That's
Okay.
it's a really great track, and
Sure.
in my opinion, on the go-kart side, there's really no reason to leave Newcastle. There's, drivers like Joseph Newgarden and Connor Daly got their starts there, and you can just learn so much from the different configurations and all the competition that travels to Newcastle. Just the amount you can learn there is plenty. There's no reason to go and race national races, because even if you win, once you move up to formula cars, it's, about what you can do at that level. They don't really care about what's on your resume at that point.
Plus Dismores are so sharp and been in it for so long. I mean, you can't get better track owners, mentors, that type of thing. So,
And the best facility you're going to find too.
Right.
It makes it a lot easier if you're going to spend your whole weekend out there. There's a nice restaurant. We had a garage, so I didn't have to mess with a trailer anymore. And Joseph Newgarden's dad, gave me good advice in that. And he said, don't waste your money running national. That's all we did. We just left the cart up there, and we'd drive from Nashville every weekend, and did that for a few years, and then went into junior formula car racing. So he saved a lot of money that way. You can spend $150,000, $250,000 a year, but no one, when you get into car racing, is asking how many go-kart races you won. They just want to know, well, 1, can you pay for it? And then 2, are you quick enough?
And you're like, well, I could have paid for it if I wouldn't have spent all that money.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, and that brings up another interesting point to racing. It's kind of the worst kept secret in motorsports. It's all driven on money. It's all money dependent. and here you are, young guys, young team. And then you first start kind of running across that, and then you got to start doing that money chase a little bit that everybody goes through. It isn't, except for the ones who have big checkbooks to begin with. The people who don't, obviously, they all have to do a money chase. And what is that kind of like to evolve into that? As you start trying to, all of a sudden, you have to start kind of making relationships that work for you. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but you're trying to make different things work for you. And was that a tough thing to do, or is that something that because some people have a real hard time with that?
It's very difficult because I'm not a salesman.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a
Right.
salesman. That's why I do what I do. I don't have a real job. Sales was something I figured I could probably do if I had to, but don't really want to. But if he's going to drive, I have to be able to sell, and he has to be able to sell himself. So it really started commercially pretty early on because we didn't even have the money to do go-karting properly. And I think that's one of the things that helped him when he got into car racing in equally prepared cars, arrive and drive, which is what the Lucas Oil Formula Car Series is. It's like the old Skip Barber. So he had been running go-karts and, never had a new chassis, never had a new engine, ran old tires, and frankly didn't win a whole lot. But then he shows up at an arrive and drive with all these kids that are used to having better equipment, and he was faster than them. So probably running on inferior equipment helped a little bit. But the point is that we've tried to find, and back in the day, it was $100, $200, $500, whatever you could for sponsorship. And admittedly, we have an advantage over other junior formula drivers because I have a bit of a platform and I'll slide in mentions on my radio show and we have social media. But when you start getting into the big numbers, it's still about, you have to look at it at what can you do for them? What kind of return can you have for them? And that's what Jackson is trying to learn as well. And I'm hoping sooner rather than later, he'll take over that part of the business fully. But he's learning it right now. So that's good.
Yeah, it's certainly been something that I've just been trying to grow on each year. I think right when I kind of moved into the Formula Car levels, when we really started to try and develop those skills, because before go-karting, there wasn't really, I had no clue where I was supposed to even start as far as trying to reach out to a partner and what we can offer them. Because if you can't figure that out, then it's tough to really show your partner what you can do for them and really have it make a ton of sense for them. But I've been learning every year, and I think Dad's relationship with IndyCar and the drivers that he's seen come up through the ranks and how they've made it have been a big help. And now it's just a process of trying to learn and get better at it each year.
And if you see his car, you see a lot of logos on that car. We're pretty much all partner driven, and that's what I do in the off season.
So when Jackson started kind of his journey, Kevin, I'm sure you kind of, had an idea of kind of like a roadmap of, how things would go. Would you say that, it's kind of gone kind of according to how you envisioned, or I'm sure there's been some roadblocks along the way, you're talking about funding and stuff. Kind of talk about that a little bit.
No, I don't think there was a roadmap, and I didn't have a plan. This is still year to year. He started in quarter midgets because we thought that would be fun. And we were going back and forth from baseball fields and basketball gyms. He had a lot of Saturdays where he would play 2 basketball games, have a baseball practice, and go test the quarter midget or run a go-kart race or whatever. So he was, trying to do a little bit of everything. And again, he didn't win big. His last year in quarter midgets, we changed. We had someone else that kind of figured out how to give him a good setup, and he won pretty big that year. And then we moved into go-karts and a little bit of success, but not a whole lot of wins. So it was, all right, we'll give you a chance. We'll send you to this karts to cars shootout. We had done 3 or 4 test days in a formula car, and we'll find out if you're any good. And I kind of thought, in reality, well, at least I gave him a chance. But the chances of you beating these kids that race 40 weekends a year when he raced 15 weekends a year didn't seem that likely. But he did well. And then it's, okay, how can we pay for this? And then it was, we'll go through this level. That worked. Then we'll do F1600. He won there. Then he wins the Team USA scholarship, and then it's on. And now it's okay. I guess we can envision trying to do this professionally. But a lot of people will say, what's your plan for IndyCar? You need to start talking to IndyCar owners about Jackson. And I don't think they care about someone in USF2000 right now. Yes, they might pay attention a little bit, but I like to look at it one step at a time. Let's get through this level. We'll try to get to the next. If that goes well, we'll go to the one after that. You can't try to fund it down the road. I have no idea how we've raised the amount of funding that we have so far. I didn't think that was possible, but we did. So now I guess my thought would be, if he's good enough to advance to the next level, maybe we can figure that out as well.
Yeah, I think that's how you have to go about it. I mean, in your mind, you can always lay out whatever roadmap you want, but reality is always different than how you think it's going to be, right? We had Antron Brown on recently. We just released a show with him, and he has a great story talking about how he went about getting sponsors and as a kid, and he's really getting into mentoring. He really would like to mentor younger drivers. I would suggest any young driver take 5 minutes and speak with Antron Brown, because he is, in my opinion, he's the best I ever met at just his interpersonal, how he deals with people interpersonally, and he believes in himself and all those type of things. And I know this is about you, so I don't want to get too far down the road, but I would try to seek out a mentor like Antron and speak with him.
Okay. I don't know him. I've maybe met him once. I think he lives somewhere near us. I think he probably lives in Brownsburg or Avon, or
I think he lives in Pittsburgh, that area.
Pittsburgh. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. He's a good man, a man of his word. And like I said, we just released a show. If you guys find time, watch it. Like I say, he's got a great story in there. And anyway, he's so you've run for this is probably your third year of these type of cars.
I did.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I did the one season in the Lucas Oil along with the season in F1600, and then my first season in USF2000 last year. So this will be my fourth full season in some sort of Formula car.
And this is your second year in USF2000, right?
Correct.
Is that you've and as you went on your journey, this year you've moved to Cape Motorsports, and I was very fortunate Aaron and I were both very fortunate to spend some time in their garage, and that's how I got to talking to your dad. And it kind of tell me what it's like when you start working with these more professional teams. I'm not saying the team you worked with last year, I'm not even sure who you drove with last year, is a professional. They may be as professional as anybody else. Like I said, I'm not sure who you worked with. But as you've went from karts on your journey, what's that been like trying to now learn a little more of what it takes as far as working with these people and analyzing and studying yourself and kind of expanding out your knowledge range?
Well, it is a little weird when I first moved into Formula cars and having a team that's sole purpose is to help me win. I did find it a little strange how I'd grown up in go-karts and quarter midgets where I helped unpack the trailer and then I would clean up the carts at the end of the day and help pack the trailer up. And now, I try to do everything I can to help, but they've got their system and their people who have already got the best ways to work out their plans. So they're, I'm not really needed in that sense. And then having a team who helps me, go over data and are doing all they can to help me win. It's certainly been a big help to my progression. And just having people who have been through it before and know what I need to do to be able to progress and to be able to win. It's been a big help. And, being able to work with all the guys at Cape Motorsports over the past few months has been, I can see the progression and just the few test days that I've done with them. And I'm super excited over the next few months as testing continues to see how we progress. I think there's potential for this to be a really good season, and I'm super excited.
Yeah, that's a great program they have there. And what was it like kind of transitioning into team where I always think it's so funny. They always call like your fellow drivers teammates, but the best case scenario is frenemies, right? I mean, you all have the same knowledge base you're working from for the most part and all that, but your job is to go out there and beat each other. And was that something difficult coming from someone who was more solo, and then now you're transferring into more of as close to a team atmosphere as you're going to get in auto racing?
Yeah, well, my first year having a real teammate was when I ran F1600 with Greg Rice and my teammate Simon Sykes, and we both worked really well together. We were able to bounce feedback off of each other and figure out the best ways to make each other better. And then on track, we worked really well together, and we weren't holding each other up. And most of the time, it was the two blue cars 1-2 because of just how we worked together. So, it is a strange sport in the aspect of you can win and your teammate might not, or vice versa. But there are benefits to being able to work with your teammate and to be able to help each other out. You don't want to be going against them. You need to be able to use every advantage you can get and help each other out, because the more you help your teammate, the more they'll help you. So it's
right.
There's you are trying to win as much as you can, but you can't be burning bridges in a sport like this.
And that was one of the many things that attracted us to Cape, is because they tested together at Pabst back in October for a day. And then they both ended up together for the Chris Griffiths test at IMS together with Cape. And, you need to know that your teammate is someone that's going to help you, you're going to work well with. And, we could tell that Jagger's a good kid, and we know he's fast. He's going to be good. So that seemed like a pretty good combination. And Cape has always been in the championship mix. They had pretty much won it every year until a couple of years ago. The good thing about USF2000 is now you don't have to be with one team. 5 years ago, you really had to be with Cape to have any chance, but two different teams have won it the last 2 years. And, there are legitimately at least 4 teams that can win the championship, but the track record is there with Cape, and you kind of see, yeah, these guys know what they're doing. They're pretty polished.
Yeah, I really like their approach. It's very serious, but it's laid back at the same time. Dominic, Nicholas, Reggie, the core group there, plus the people that travel on the weekends and that. I think just from the little bit of time I was around them, I personally really like kind of their style. They know what they need, they know what they want done, but they're not looking to point fingers. They're not looking it's all about one thing, it's winning. And that's what I took away from just those few interactions I've had with them. Yeah, I just think that's tough. It's always so tough too, is trying to make those right connections. Man, am I making the move at the right time? And is this the right team? And and I'm sure all that it's like anything else, right up until that first race day practice session. It's always kind of until you get everybody out there. Of course, Chris Griffith's test is a good measure. Mm-hmm. But when you finally get everybody together that first race, that's exactly where you stand at that point. So,
and sometimes a driver just fits a team's car a little bit better. They're going to adjust the car as much as they can, but still in a lower level series, especially when you're joining a team that has a track record, I would expect them to say, no, we know this car is pretty good. You get in there and figure out how to drive it.
Right.
So Jackson, kind of driving in different, series and formula cars, do you notice like a big, shift in competition? Like, in USF2000, did you notice like the competition was a lot greater, or did it seem kind of, level with other series?
Yeah, for sure. When I raced in Lucas Oil and F1600, there were plenty of very talented drivers, but the volume of how good the drivers are and how deep into the field the talent is in USF2000 is really next level. And I mean, I've raced over in Europe for the Team USA scholarship and the Formula Ford Festival and Walter Hayes Trophy. And those guys are all very talented, but just the amount of drivers in the USF2000 field who can win and are capable of being very quick it just doesn't compare to any other series right now. It's the field is just super stacked, and I think it's going to be a great opportunity for me to learn and get better, because you get better by racing against the best. So I think it's going to be a great opportunity to learn this year, and it's going to be a good season in that aspect.
As far as the cars go, kind of going through the ranks, or I mean, how much different are the cars to drive? Like, do they seem? I mean, are they pretty much similar? Or obviously, the further you kind of move up, the faster they obviously get.
Yeah, they are all similar in driving style. And you don't really notice the power too much. Maybe the first test session in the car, you can kind of pick up on that. But after that, it's really just how in the USF2000 series, it's the first time I've ran with wings, and the Cooper tires they produce a lot more grip than the tires I'd ran on before. So just learning how to take advantage of all that grip and be able to roll speed through the corner has been something I'd had to adapt to. But as far as like the power and the speed of the car, it's not too much different.
How did they do that? Because I know they got the new tubs. So is it the same tub in juniors F2000 and then the next step and then a different tub for Indy Lights?
So I believe this year we have a different USF Junior tub, and I think they're getting a new car next year. I'm not sure if it's going to be the same. And then the USF and Indy Pro have the same tub. Lights has a specific tub that's built by Dallara rather than Tatis, and then obviously the IndyCar.
Yeah, the Indy Pro just has bigger tires, more power, different wings, but it is the same tub. And I think that's right. I think USF Juniors is supposed to have the same tub next year, but this year they're basically using the F4 tub.
Yeah, that would make sense into some of the conversations I've heard. I wasn't quite sure how that worked out. Yeah, you were talking earlier about all your decals, and if anybody goes to your website, they will see how hard you guys have been working to get those local connections with. How many different sponsors would you say you have from Indiana, the Indiana-based sponsors?
I'd say on a primary level, maybe 3 or 4, but then we've got a bunch of smaller supporters who've been with me for a while, and we've got a few other supporters from all around the country who have helped me out, but they've all certainly been a big part of my career. And as we mentioned earlier, we wouldn't be able to do this without the sponsorship support. So guys like the IU Simon Comprehensive Cancer Center coming along this year, they're a big reason of why we're going to be able to race this year, along with returning partners Browning Chapman, longtime supporters Caldwell Subways and Caldwell Realties, the Spruce Cold Brew Coffee are a big supporter, and then along with Doug Mockett coming back for his second year. I think we've got a really strong group of people supporting me, and I'm super happy to be representing such great brands.
Yeah, a couple of them actually are not from here, and we just kind of stumbled into the. He said Coffee because that's kind of their branding. It's a dairy farm in upstate New York that's produced a cold brew coffee made with milk and high protein, and it's called Spruce. And we would greatly appreciate if anyone buys some, and they use the code JacksonLee10. We get credit for that. So they've been really nice to us. But I just happen to have a friend that was an investor. And as I've been going through my network and asking people, hey, do you know anybody that could potentially help us? I was introduced to Doug Young and the people at the farm, and they came to a race and loved it. And they've been big supporters.
Man, that's awesome. And I got to tell you, Jackson could probably do some TV and radio if he wanted. He was pretty good at that.
So my buddy Vince's son, Dylan, is already in contention to take work from Vince. Dylan works with me on NBC. So I want him to do something else for a while before he tries to take my job.
Dylan became quite the racer over the years too. He is
Yeah.
Especially for a littles, he gets to do it now. Man,
He races once or twice a year. And he told me last year he thought he was retired, and then I'm going to do the Chili Bowl again. So he's doing the Chili Bowl again.
Would you now you unfortunately got a little bit of height problem to run midgets. We'd have to get you a little different car. What would you ever like to get into a midget or sprint car? Not to say that I'm sure Dad isn't too pumped to see you want to run one of those, but
Yeah, I would. I don't know how the height works in those cars, how tall you can be to drive one, but I'd for sure love to do it. I know they'd let me do a midget at some point. I think the Chili Bowl would be a great race to do at some point. I don't know about a sprint car. I know Mom wouldn't be too happy with that one. But
Yeah.
it's certainly, that's, where my background is from on my mom's side. That's, certainly something that I'd love to try someday. But, for now I'll focus on getting to IndyCar or somewhere professionally.
Yep.
And then if the opportunity comes one day, sure. But for now, it's not our focus.
And it's hard. You can't just be a race car driver and show up. You see what, a Connor Daly does, and Connor's done it 4 or 5 times now where he's competent, but that first time out, it's really tough because we've had a couple of people ask if he'd be interested in running it. And if I would have pushed it, they might have paid for it. But my thought has been, hey, until we're fully funded, whatever cash you have, let's devote it to what we're most focused in. If we ever get that fully funded, then maybe we can do some fun things. And something like the Chili Bowl would be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had midgets for a lot of years, and your height isn't really that big a deal. It'd be getting the steering box height right for your knees to get clearance, and then getting tall enough cage would be.
I think he'd fit.
Yeah, you could definitely fit. It's a body type too, because some different body types.
Yep.
If you got a longer trunk, it makes it a little different than if you got longer legs and that. So first race is about 48 days away, something like that.
Sounds right.
48, something like that. And as you're coming into your second season, I'm sure in your mind, this is kind of a season. Hey, last year I did it. This year this year I want to go out and show everybody what I can do. What kind of mental preparedness do you start working on, and about when do you start working on? Like, do you do focus, where you're just doing reps in your mind as well as on the sim, and like on a race weekend, when do you kind of start getting into that zone?
Yeah. Well, over the off season, I haven't really stopped trying to prepare for the next season. I go to Pit Fit here in Indy to train and keep myself prepared, and they do a lot of cognitive drills to kind of keep your mind sharp and help your reaction times and your focus, especially after, at the end of a race when you're tired, being able to still mentally perform is something that they focus on. And then also, doing stuff with the sim. I've done some training in the past with the sim, with working on being able to stay focused and run quick lap times at the end of a long run and when you're tired. As far as a race weekend goes, though, I think it's important to not overthink and not kind of get in your own head. You definitely want to be focused, and when you have the opportunity to go over data and go and talk through your driving with coaches, you have to take those opportunities and try and improve as much as you can. But at some point it gets to where what you have to do, you just have to go do it. So it's at that point, you're just making sure you're eating right and getting good rest for the weekend, and just go out and do it, and just don't overthink it.
I like that approach. I do. You got to drive. I always feel you got to drive to your personality. So if your personality is that way, I think you got to do like that. And if you're a super intense guy, then that's how you kind of got to be. And I think trying to be a laid back guy and being super intense or just the opposite, I don't know if that always works for people. So I think that's great that you know exactly kind of how you want your weekends to go. We know you guys got a heart out. Aaron, do you have any more questions for him?
The one thing I was going to ask for Kevin is, so I know you're doing trackside this year. Obviously, you've done that for a while. NBC Sports, what other projects are you doing this year as far as broadcasting goes?
So most of my work is now NBC. I did a college basketball game for them last weekend. Might do something else again. I'm still freelance though. So that's also part of the hustle, is just to kind of make sure that I have enough work. I have the ability to do things on different networks. I'm doing something for a production company on Fox on FS1 next month. But since NBC picked up sports cars, that's really worked out pretty well with the IndyCar schedule. And I do at least the endurance sports car races and usually a few more. And I'm always looking to do a little bit more football and basketball, but it's tough. I can't do football because I missed too many of the games in the fall. You can't do a complete package because of the racing season. And there aren't as many basketball games available anymore because some of the announcers are doing the games from like right here, and they're doing 2 in a day or doing back-to-back days in different locations. COVID kind of taught the industry how to start saving more money and using fewer people. So that's been a bit of a challenge. I'm hoping it goes back, but I'm not sure that it is. But I like the motorsports. As long as I have a full IndyCar and sports car program, that's generally enough. And then the rest of the time is the quote manager for Jackson Lee Racing.
Well, that's the most important job, right?
To some people it is. Yeah. Yeah.
It's probably the most fun too, right?
Most of the time, but again, I'm not a sales guy. Luckily, the people that we work with have become good friends. So that's made it pretty easy, but I really don't enjoy calling people and asking them for money. So it goes back to the approach. I'm not asking them for money. I'm trying to come up with ideas to propose to them how I can make them money. I want to do something for them, get them more exposure, save them money, make that money. That's the challenge. And I'm still learning that part of the business. My next career may be driver manager. We'll see. That's what Peter Rossi has done. He got Alexander Rossi to F1 and IndyCar, and now he's managing other young drivers.
Well, I personally think that that's the way you got to approach it. You got to approach it as what can we do for each other, and and if it doesn't work for both sides, there's really no reason to do it. I don't believe. I mean, if somebody's just willing to give you money, okay.
But that's few and far between. Yeah, you can do that for $500, but we're talking, $400,000 or $500,000 budgets even at this level. So these are significant commitments at a corporate level.
Absolutely, yeah. So Jackson, like I said, we were just talking a little bit about your approach. And I realize that we don't have a grand plan, but say this year goes according to plan, and you win races, you run up front, run first, second in the championship, do you at that point start looking, okay, we've kind of accomplished what we want to do here and you want to move on? Or, I mean, is that kind of the mindset, or do you say, no, I don't want to move on until I have a championship? I mean, kind of I would think after second year in this series, if you're showing that you can run up front and get the finishes, that you've probably done all you can do at this level.
Yeah, I think it's all really just budget dependent. If we get to the off season next year and say I've done really well in the championship but not quite won it, if we need maybe another year to try and go back and get that, get the scholarship, then that's might be what we have to do. Or maybe we have enough partners excited about the strong championship result that we're able to move up. I think it's all really just budget dependent. I would say the only reason that I would want to stay in the USF series is if I'm just struggling and feel I really need one more year to develop. I hope that's not the case, and I don't expect that to be the case. But as far as I know, by the end of the year, I'd like to be testing in Indy Pro cars, but also that's all just, do we have the extra funding available for that? So we'll see how it all works out. But, the hope is to be driving Indy Pro cars in the 2023 season.
Well, guys, thank you so much for coming in and doing this show. It's been absolutely my pleasure. And hopefully, if you guys don't mind coming back a little bit later in the year and just kind of keep us updated how you're doing. And I just wish you the best of luck. And Kevin, I've obviously, like so many people, I'm sure have told you, I've listened to you for years on the radio and on IndyCar racing, and it's just a pleasure to finally be able to meet you and talk to you at this level. And guys, I wish you nothing but the best, and I really do hope that you get what you want out of this year's season.
Thank you.
Thank
It's been
for
our
having me.
pleasure. We'd be happy to talk to you again.
We appreciate it. Thank you.